So we'll just wait for 1 or 2 minutes. Okay. So in between, if you have any questions, you can ask me. We'll get started in maybe 1 or 2 minutes from now. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Hi, Shishir here.
Yeah, sure. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question. What's exactly taught yesterday?
Yeah.
Just in brief.
I mean, yesterday I was just teaching the basics of Linux, and
Okay.
apart from that, I was just covering what are the versions of DB2 and what are the products which are available and how to check those things basically.
Okay. Architecture is not yet taught, right?
Not yet covered. So today I'll be teaching the architecture.
All
And I'll do one thing. I'll send you the recording session of yesterday. Maybe you can go through it when you're free. Okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sure, I'll do that. Maybe I'll speak with someone from Visualpath and send you the link.
Yeah, I'll check with Divya. That's fine.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions before we get started for today? Okay. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Yesterday I was asking about timing, right? Is there any possible?
Timing. Okay. I think I'll do one thing. I'll reach out to all the other people through emails and I'll get a confirmation. Tomorrow I'll confirm you with the timings. Okay.
Sure,
So
sure, sir.
This timings does not work for you. I think it's only half an hour difference, right?
Yeah, because I'm doing some other small job.
Okay. So you want it from 6:30 or something?
Yeah, if it is 6:30, fine. Then also no issues.
Okay, I'll just check with
I'll
other people.
manage.
Yeah, I'll check with other people and I'll confirm you by tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, sure, sir.
Yeah, sure. Because I think few people are from US and few are from India, so I think this is the time. Okay.
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 And you told you are working in IBM, right?
Yep, I'm working in IBM. Yep.
Because I am also working in IBM.
Hyderabad, you're working in?
Bangalore.
Oh, you're working in Bangalore. Which location?
S.A. Subramania Arcade, but I wanted to move Hyderabad, so that is why actually I was working with IBM Lotus Notes.
Oh, you're on Lotus Notes. Okay, got it. I think you want to.
So I want to move Hyderabad. For my technology, there are no calls in Hyderabad.
And DB2, they have a lot of openings in Hyderabad, basically.
Yeah, that is what I'm trying to learn this, and I want to move Hyderabad with DB2 skill.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Currently, I have a 4.6 years of experience in Lotus Notes.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I think Lotus Notes also uses DB2, right, for database.
That is depends DB2 or
okay, so they
Oracle.
have. Okay.
So my goal is I want to move Hyderabad with DB2 skill.
Sure. Yeah. I'll help you. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get started. It's almost 5 minutes across the line, right? We'll get started basically. Okay. So like yesterday, I really have not sent you the things, right? So I'll be writing in the same things which we have discussed yesterday, like about all the operating systems which we have seen, and we have gone through some of the Linux commands yesterday, and we have seen like what are the versions of DB2 which are available, and what are called fix packs, how to look at the versions and fix packs kind of thing basically. Okay. And we have also seen like what are the products of DB2. As I told you yesterday, ES is the product which most of the company people will be using. So make sure that if you are kept in some project, so try to first look at what is the version of DB2 which they are running and what is the product which they are installing basically. Okay. So the quick ways to check. Okay, just let me log in to the Linux server. I'll try to upload this. I have compressed it, but I have not uploaded it. So today I'll upload it, so you can see it by tomorrow. Just let me log on to my server. So once you have the Linux boxes with you also, you can also simply try to log on to the servers and practice the DB2 commands. As I told you yesterday, if you download it, the username and password is root is the username and the Red Hat is the password. So once you download the software which I share with you, you can also log in with the same credentials because you're just downloading the setup which I have configured. So the username and passwords will be same basically. Okay. Just a second. Okay, so we'll get started. Okay, so today, as I told you yesterday, I think someone is speaking. Oh, someone, can you be in, Navin, can you be in mute? I think I can hear a lot of background. So if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask us basically. Okay, till that point you can be in mute. So today we'll get started with the architecture of DB2. Okay, before telling you the architecture of DB2, if you want to read any documentation site or something, I'll give you a link from where you can look into it. Okay. See, I'll give you a simple example. Let's say if you're purchasing any mobile or any product from the IBM, let's say you're purchasing some LCD TV from the market, you'll get a book which is called a documentation book basically, or any product which you want to purchase from the market. You'll get some documentation book, and the documentation book will be having all the features of the product. Let's say I'm purchasing some LCD Samsung TV. So if you'll get the book will be having all the features like how to operate and how to switch on the smart TV, how to do Chromecast. So there are a lot of features which are written in the book, which we call it as a documentation book. Okay. If you don't know how to use some of the features, the best place to go is to go to the documentation book and see how the features you can enable it or how the features you can use it basically. Okay. On the same lines, we are saying that DB2 is a IBM database and it is a product basically. Okay. And let's say I don't know syntaxes of few commands, or let's assume that I don't know the architecture of DB2 or anything you want to read it. Okay. So the question is, do we have a documentation site for IBM DB2 also? Yes, we have a documentation site. Can you log on to the documentation site and search for the things? Yes, you can do it. Okay. So if you want to read the IBM documentation site, just go to Google and search something called information center basically. Okay, so here you can see different versions. So if you want to see the latest versions, go with 10.5. so this will open the documentation site for the latest version, and if you search for 9.7, this will open the documentation sites for the old version, a bit of old version, which is 9.7 basically. Okay, so I'm trying to open the 9.7 only. So if you want, you can open the 10.5 also. Okay, so if you open this, you will get a web sync. So this is something which we call it as information center. So this is a website where you can read anything basically. If you don't know any feature of DB2, or if you want to read some material, any information which you want to read with respect to DB2, this is the link which we call it as information center basically. Okay, so simply type this keyword in the Google, this link will be opened. You can bookmark this link if you want to read the contents. Okay, I'll just put it in the chat. You can save this for your reference. So just open the link and you can see the documentation link basically. Okay, now I'm interested in learning the DB2 architecture, so you can search anything here. If you don't know anything, you can simply type it here and you can click on the first link. So if you just scroll down a bit, you can see what is the architecture diagram, and he will give you a lot of documentation about the things. Okay, so this is very simple thing for reading the material. Or let's say you want to create a database and you forgot what is the syntax. So create database is not a simple command. It has more than 250 options. So if you want to go through each and every option, just type whatever be the thing which you want to go through, and links will come. You can click any of the link where you can see the examples, where you can see a few more things basically. Or you don't know what is buffer pool. I have not taught you the buffer pool, but just as an example. So click on the topic. You can click on any of the links, so it will give you a documentation site what is buffer pool and how to create a buffer pool with syntaxes and other things basically. Okay, so this is very good place where you can read the stuff basically. Okay, so if you want to search for DB2 architecture, and you can see the picture which I just downloaded, so you can also look into this diagram basically. Okay, clear? What is information center, how to look at the things, kind of thing. Okay. In future also, if you don't know the syntaxes, or if you got something stuck in between, go to the documentation site, because the documentation site is written by IBM people. IBM people knows DB2 much better than any other people. Okay, so that's why read the this information center links only for any questions basically. Okay. So moving further, so we'll discuss about the DB2 architecture. Okay, so before getting started, Okay, it's very important for any, see, if you're learning not only DB2, if you're learning any course, the first thing which you should understand or you should be very clear is the architecture of the software basically. Okay, the simple question is what is architecture and how it is going to help me basically. Okay, so architecture will exactly tell you what happens at the back end basically. Say, let's say simple examples like I want to construct a 5-store building basically. I cannot just purchase the bricks or sand and construct it. First you should have a plan, you should get the plan approved, and the plan you should easily try to put it in a way that where should be the stairs and where should be the lift and other things basically. Okay, on the same lines, you're trying to learn DB2, you should know like what all components are involved in the DB2, how the components interact with each other, what is the importance of each and every component, and what happens if the component does not work, will DB2 still run, or what are the challenges with it. Okay, so this diagram is going to tell me how many components are there, how they interact with each other, which components invokes which component speaks with which component, kind of thing basically. Okay, so look at this diagram. This diagram is mainly split into two parts. Okay, I think I can write it through somewhere. Just give me a second. This does not have an option to write. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this diagram has two different. It should be. I think. Hey Ramesh, can you go on mute? I don't know how to. Hey Ramesh, you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, just mute. Hello?
Yeah.
Ramesh, can you go on mute? I think I can hear a lot of background from you.
No, nothing.
No, I can hear you. I think who else is speaking? Okay, now it's good basically. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so if you look at this diagram, basically this diagram has two components. If you look at the top, this is called clients, from where the connections will come, and this we call it as server basically. Okay, so in the real time also basically your projects, whatever the projects which you are working, you will be having a clients from where the connections will be initiated, and you have something called server where you install the DB2. Okay, so every project is been classified into these kind of things basically. I'll give you a simple example. I mean, in the college days or somewhere you might have heard about something called 2-tier architecture and 3-tier architecture basically. Let's keep it simple. Let's say, let's go through the 2-tier architecture basically. Okay. So in the 2-tier architecture, what really happens will be there will be two different server. This will be a server which is called application server, and there will be another server which is called as a database server basically. So we are speaking about 2-tier architecture. In the 3-tier architecture, there will be one more layer which we call it as a presentation layer. Okay, so that is not important for us basically. But what is important is in every company or in every project, whatever you're seeing, there will be two different servers or two different teams. One is database server where your database will reside. Another is application server where your application will run basically. Okay, remember that the client's connections, let's say I'm trying to connect to this application, the client application cannot directly connect to the database server. They always try to connect to your application server, and the application server will internally try to connect to the database server basically. So this is the architecture, or this is the methodology which all the projects will follow in the real time basically. Okay, so remember, you will be having an application server which will be maintained by the application team. You will be having a database server which will be maintained by the database team. Okay, I'll give you a few examples. When I say application server, there are a lot of SAP is one application server. We can have something called PeopleSoft, WebSphere. So these are some of the examples of application. There are a lot of other things. You can write a simple Java program which can be application server kind of thing. Okay. When you say database server, there can be different database. It can be DB2, it can be Oracle, it can be SQL Server. I'm just trying to write a lot of important things only. Okay. So you can have a database server which is running on DB2, and you can have an application server which is running on SAP or WebSphere or PeopleSoft. Okay. So remember, in companies, two teams will be working. One team which we call it as application team, whose responsibility is to maintain the application server, and there will be a database team whose responsibility is to maintain the database things. Okay. So this is the architecture which we are seeing as a two-tier architecture. Simple examples. I'll give you simple examples. Go to IRCTC site. I'm giving an example of IRCTC site because most of the people might have already used it or might have know what are the features which are present in the IRCTC site basically. Okay. So if I go to the IRCTC site, or let me open it, any project in your real time will be in the same basis. Okay. So I'm opening a link basically. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So if you want to log on to this site, you can log on to this site. Okay, let me quickly log on to this site with my credentials. So I just give my credentials, I can log on, and you can see here I can book the tickets to the source and destination which I want to. I'm trying to book. So I am planning to book the tickets for some date, let's say some example, and submit. Okay. So the reason why I'm trying to show all these things is, okay, what is the date today? 25th. Why no train is there from Bangalore? Okay, so you can see a list of trains. Okay, the reason why I'm trying to show all this site is when you open an IRCT site, so there is a login page which was written in JSPs mainly. Okay, the page opens, and when you give your username and password, your username and password has to be checked. They have to be cross-checked whether are you the authenticated persons or not. And when you give the source name of the train and the destination name of the train, so there is some code which is written. Basically, the IRCT site is written in Java at the backend with JSP in the front end pages. So the code has to be run somewhere. Okay. So in this example which I have shown here, the code which was written for Java code and the JSP code, the code will be running in this server which we call it as an application server. Okay. And here, when you try to click this button which says source and destination, it has to list you all the trains which are available with the timings. Okay. So what really happens internally is it tries to contact the database, it tries to get the data, and it tries to show you the data basically. Okay. So remember, to the database server, all the connections will be coming from application server only. End client cannot connect. See, you are a client basically. You can only connect to the application server, and the application server will internally connect to the database server. You cannot directly connect to any of the database server directly basically. So this is the setup which most of the people will do, and this setup you should understand is very clearly basically. Okay. A lot of people say there are DB2 servers on the front end is SAP. When I say the front end is SAP, which means that the application server is running on SAP. Some people say I have a database server which is DB2 and the front end is WebSphere, which means that the application code which is running on a WebSphere. Okay. So in companies, when you're working on projects, you're mostly interacting with the different team which we call as an application team basically. Okay, clear? Okay. So the same thing has been explained very neatly here. So this is a client from where the connections are coming, and this is the server where you can see what things are happening at the back end. Okay. So you can see all the client connections are coming from client to server. Okay. Okay. So we'll see the architecture. When you look at the architecture here, you can see there are a lot of things which are in circles. Okay. So the first important thing which you should know is anything which is running, anything which you're seeing in a circle here is a process which is running at the back end basically. Okay. So you should understand few acronyms basically. Let's get started. The first simple thing in DB2 architecture, you should know what is process. So if you're wondering what is process, a process is nothing but it's a program which is running at the back end. So process is nothing but any program which is running at the back end is called a process basically. Okay, I'll show you some examples of a process. Okay, you people are comfortable with Windows, so I'll open some. I'll show you like what all processes are running at the back end in Windows, so that you can be very comfortable. Okay, so let me open the task manager. I think I open a lot of sessions here. Okay, there is no empty space for yet. Okay, let me close this and open it. Okay, you can open it now. Okay. You can see that I am trying to open a task manager. Okay, so if you open the task manager and see here, there is a tab which is called process. Okay, see these things are important. I'll show you the same thing on Linux also. Okay, as you know Windows, so I'm trying to show it first on Windows. Okay, you can see that there are a lot of processes which are running at the back end. You can see the Chrome. I have opened a Chrome, so that Chrome is running, and you can see a lot of other processes which are running at the back end basically. Okay. So remember, any software which you are trying to run, there is a process which starts at the back end, and the process runs at the back end, and whatever be the action which you are doing, the process will help you. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. You know the notepad, so let me open the notepad. If I open the notepad here, and you can see here from the process list, you can see at the back end, there is a process which gets started. Okay, I'll close the existing notepad so that it will be clear for you. Okay, so I closed everything. Okay, now nothing is there. I'll open a new session for notepad. You can look at these tabs, so you can see that there's a process which gets started. You can see that there's a process which gets started, and if you close this, you see the process has vanished basically. Okay, so let me reopen it again. So if you open any application, you can see here at the back end a process starts basically. Okay, so if you're wondering what is a process is nothing but a program which is running at the back end. So some developer has written a code saying that okay, if a notepad is open, a process should be running at the back end, and here I can type whatever I want to do. Okay, and if I do Control S, which is saving it, it will ask you which location you want to save. I think most of the people know what is notepad, right? So remember, if I type something here, I want to save it in the desktop as Raju name. So it is saving the contents of this file to them by the file name Raju here. So you can see somewhere the Raju file is created basically. Okay. So the question is, who has created this file on the desktop and who has saved this? Okay. So remember, all the actions which you are doing is being done by the process which is running at the back end basically. Okay, so if I close this, the process vanishes. You can see the process vanished again. If you open this again, the process comes at the back end basically. Okay, so in simple terms, what I'm trying to tell you is a process is nothing but it's a program which runs at the back end basically. Okay, and if I'm typing something in between, and can I kill this process from this point? Yes, you can kill it, but don't do these things in companies. If I do end process, what will happen? You are killing the process, which means that the application which is running will be killed by itself. Okay, so I'm doing end process. You can see that the notepad went away basically. Okay, so your application will only run until the time at the back end the process is running. If due to some reason, either intentionally or unintentionally, if someone has killed the process at the back end, then your software won't run at all basically. Okay, so this is a simple example which I have shown you for notepad. So if you open a notepad, you can see that at the back end only one process is starting at the back end, because notepad is a very lightweight application. It has very limited features basically. Okay, but if you look at the the architecture of DB2, basically you can see here, you can see that there are a lot of circles. As I told you, there are a lot of circles which are present here. So you can see there are a lot of processes which are running at the back end. So you can ask me a simple question, why here you can see a lot of processes are running and in the notepad only one single process is running. Okay, so notepad has a very simple, it's a very lightweight application or a simple application which does not have a lot of features. It has a simple feature of writing the data, saving to the thing, and if a file is there, you can open the file using a text editor like notepad kind of thing. Okay, it does not have a lot of features. But for softwares like DB2, where it has to do a number of things. Basically, it has to save your data to the table, it has to retrieve your data from the table, it has to provide security, it has to provide high availability. So there are a lot of tasks which your database manager has to do at the back end. So that's the reason it has a lot of process which will be running in the back end, basically. Okay. So see here, as I told you since beginning, anything which is in circle is a process at the end. So you can see this is one process, sub-agents of the process. You can see these are the processes which are called prefetchers. We'll see each and everything. We have something called page cleaners, and we have something called loggers. We'll see each and everything. But first, before getting started, this is the client from where your connections will come, and this is a server to which the connections will come. Okay. And remember, you can see some cloud kind of thing here. So these are nothing but these are protocols through which your client can connect to the server, basically. Okay. So there are different protocols which are present, and most important protocol is TCP/IP protocol, basically. Okay. So any client which is trying to connect to any server, not only DB2, look for SAP client connecting to SAP server, DB2 client connecting to DB2 server, Oracle client connecting to Oracle server. Any client who is trying to connect to the server can follow different protocols. Okay, so these are the protocols through which it can connect, but most of the people, they use 90% of the people, they use TCP/IP protocol to connect from a client to server. Okay, so others rarely people use, but I have seen like 90% of the people, 95% of the people, they use TCP/IP. You know, just stick to it, basically. Okay, and let's say we'll see like what happens really at the back end when the client connections are coming, basically. Okay. So I'll reopen the diagram again so that nothing will be there. So if you look at this diagram, okay, let's say a client is trying to connect. Okay, before that, let's see a few more things. Okay, in this diagram, just try to be comfortable with the things. You can see a few hard disks here, basically. Okay, so the disk are the place where your data will be stored ultimately. Okay, so remember, I have told you like we have seen like how to create a database in DB2. So if you create a database and if you create a tables, if you insert the data will be stored. Okay, let's say I have a table by name employee. Let's say I'll give a simple example. Let's say I have a table by name EMP, and I inserted some 10 lakh records into this table. Okay, but the question is where the employee table is created and where it is storing the data. So ultimately, all the data has to be stored on the hard disks only. Basically, whatever be the data whatever be the tables which are creating, and whatever be the things which are creating, everything has to be stored on the hard disk only, basically. Okay, and if the client is running a query called select star from employee, what select star from employee will do? It will try to retrieve the data. People say it will try to retrieve the data from the table, but really what happens? It tries to retrieve the data from your hard disk and show it to the end client. Okay, so the client can run any query. He can do select, he can do insert, he can do update, he can do any operations, any operations. Okay, but let's see what will happen. But simple thing is, any table, anything which is trying to create, the data will be stored on the hard disks, basically. Okay, so hard disks are the place where your physical data will be stored, basically. That is one important thing which you should be knowing, basically. Let me open it again. I don't know how to save it. Okay, so let's say a client connection is coming and he's running some query called select star from employee or something. Okay, so remember here you can see a process. So what is the name of this process? The name of this process is called coordinating agent, basically. Okay, so simply remember that if a client connection comes, or if a client is trying to connect to a server, a process starts at the backend. The name of the process is called coordinating agent. Okay, so what is agent? So simple thing is, agent is nothing but it's a mediator, basically. It's a mediator in between your client and the server, basically. Okay, so you can see that for this client, an agent started. For another client, you can see that another agent started. If another client is trying to connect to the server here, you can see one more agent will start at the backend, basically. Okay, so in simple language, DB2 for every client connection, okay, on the server side it will start an agent. Okay, so why it is starting each and every agent? Because for each and every connection, this agent will start. It will take the request from the client. It will try to speak with all the server agents, get the output, and return it back to the end client, basically. That's why you can see that there are two arrowheads. One, it is sending the request, and in the second thing, it is getting the output. Okay, so simple language, coordinating agent is nothing but it's a process basically which acts as a mediator in between your client and the server basically. Okay, I'll write a simple notes. Maybe if you want to know, make a note of it, you can note it, or you have the documentation link which I've given you. You can see it here. Okay. So the first thing which is important is coordinating agent. So just make a quick note of it and let me know once you're done. We'll go further. So we just started with one process which is called coordinating agent. So as I told you, you can look in this diagram. It's self-explanatory. Okay. So it takes a request from the client, try to process it on the server and give back the result to the end client. That's why you're able to see two arrowheads. One is the request it is receiving and the result which it is going to send it back basically. Okay. So just make a quick note of it and let me know. I'll move forward. Done? Okay. So I'll show you things a bit in. Okay. So simple thing. See, assume that you have gone to a new place. Let's say you went to Chennai or somewhere and you went to a hotel basically. Okay. So and you got some room number 123 or something basically. Okay. A boy will take you till that room number 123 because you don't know where the 123 room exists in the hotel basically. Okay. So simple thing. You do if you don't know any place, new place, there is someone who will guide you who is in the hotel basically. Okay. So the boy is a mediator in between you and the porter. So he will take your request, he will take your room number, he will take you to the room and he will drop it there basically. So he acts as a mediator in between you and the client. Okay. On the same lines, if a client connection is coming and if the people are not able to, if it is trying to run some query, say select star from employee, the server, the client does not know where the employee data is stored on the server. It can be stored on this disk or this disk or this disk. Okay. So what really happens is the agent will start. The agent will speak with all the. It will does all the processing here. It gets the employee data and it returns back to the result to the end client. So it acts as a mediator in between the client and the server. Okay. Next important thing is for each and every client connection, you will see an agent basically. Here you can see there are two connections. You are able to see two agents basically. If there are 10 connections, you should be able to see 10 agents. If there are 100 connections, you should be able to see 100 connections, 100 agents basically. Okay. So the important thing is for each and every client connection, you will see an agent. If there are 100 connections, you will see 100 coordinating agents. If there are 10,000, you will see 10,000 coordinating agents basically. Okay. So there are few things which I'll show you in future, but just as we are discussing the same thing, there are few configuration parameters where you can configure C. I'll show you the third C. You can look at these things. Maximum coordinating agent. There are the few parameters where you can configure. Here you can see that the value is set to 200, which means that my server can only maximum start 200 agents, which means that only at any moment of time my DB2 server will start only 200 coordinating agents. Okay. If more number of connections are coming and DB2 won't start the new coordinating agent, which means that the maximum number of connections which your DB2 server will accept is only 200. So there are few parameters where you can configure it. You can say how many connections can come to my server, how many connections are available. Okay. So you can put some restrictions also basically, which we'll see those things in future basically. Okay. Clear? What is agent till this point? Okay. So we'll move to the next thing. Okay. And as I told you here, let's say I have created an employee table. You know what is an employee table and other things, right? Okay. We'll do small example. I'll write it here. We'll take an example. Basically, let's say I am creating employee table. So if I create an employee table, let's say the name of the table is employee. Let's say I have inserted 10 lakh records. Okay. So if you create a table and insert the data has to be stored in some location. Let's say it is stored in this location or any location on the disk basically. Okay. Let's say another client is running a query called select star from employee. So let's say this client is running a query called select star from employee, where data is stored in this disk basically. So what really happens is this client connection will come to the agent, and the agent has to speak with some other process. I'll tell you which process it speaks. So the agent will speak with some other process which is called prefetchers. So can you see a process here? Yes. So what is the name of this process? The name of this process is called prefetchers. Okay. As the name suggests, what is prefetcher? Prefetchers are nothing but they will fetch the data basically. From where they fetch the data? They will fetch the data from your hard disk basically. And after fetching the data from where they put the data in the memory. Any operation which you're doing, remember the data has to be read from your disk and it has to keep it in the memory basically. Let's say you're playing a game, you're playing a very big games basically like Age of Empires or something. If you load the game or if you install the game will be installed on your disk. And if you're playing a game, the data has to be copied from your disk to memory basically. Okay, that's why if you play some games or if you move from one level to another level, you will see something called like loading. Okay, so what exactly happens in the backend if the game is getting loading? And during this time, your game data will be loaded to the memory basically. Okay, so it cannot, for big games like Age of Empires or something else, it cannot copy all the data which is present in the disk to memory in a single operation. It takes some time to copy it. So until this is copied, you cannot play the game. That's why it is showing as loading basically. Okay. On the same lines, let's say as I told you, my employee data is there. My employee data is stored in this disk. Let's assume that this is present in this disk basically, and my client is running a query called select star from employee. So the agent will start. The agent will try to read the data. So who is going to help you? So there's a different process which gets started. The name of process is called prefetchers. Okay. As the name says, what is prefetcher? It simply fetches the data. From where it fetches the data? It fetches the data from the hard disk and copies to RAM, or some people they call it as memory. So these things are very much important. If you're stuck somewhere or if you're not understanding, don't feel shy or something, just ask me. Just unmute yourself and ask me basically. Okay. So simple thing, agent will start it and agent will speak with a process which is called prefetchers. What are prefetchers? First important thing, prefetchers are the process. What are these process doing? These process will read the data. From where they read the data? They read the data from the hard disk, and where they copy the data? They copy the data to the RAM, or we call it as a memory, or some people they call it as a volatile storage basically. Okay. So the job of prefetcher is to fetch the data from the disk and copy to the RAM or memory. Okay. So remember, there is a technical term which we call it as buffer pool. So buffer pool is nothing but it's a part of RAM where DB2 copies the data. So you might be knowing that okay, your system has a RAM which can be used by all the applications. Let's say my server is having DB2 installed and SAP installed. So the RAM DB2 can copy the data from disk to memory. SAP can copy the data from disk to memory. Okay. So do we have a dedicated memory where DB2 can copy the data from your disk? Yes. We call it as a buffer pool. Okay. So in simple terms, what is a buffer pool? Buffer pool is nothing but it's some part of your RAM where DB2 can copy the data. Okay. So what data it can copy? It can copy the data from your hard disk and put it up in the memory. The area which is dedicated for DB2 or the area which is allocated for DB2, we call it as a buffer pools. Okay. So in today's class, just try to understand the keywords. What is buffer pool? What is disk? What is coordinating agent? What is prefetcher kind of thing, basically. Okay. So today we'll see very high level of architecture, and remember the architecture cannot be completed in a single day. So we'll take 2 to 3 days to discuss each and every internal components of architecture, basically. Okay. So clear till this point, what is client connections, what is coordinating agents, and what is prefetchers, how they fetch the data, and what is buffer pool. So look at this diagram in a clearer way. Now you should be understanding few things at least, by now. So agent speaks with coordinating prefetcher. Prefetcher fetches the data and puts to the memory. The part of memory where DB2 puts the data, we call it as a buffer pool. Okay. Clear? Any questions till this point? I'll give you some notes. Maybe you can write in between. Maybe you could write these things basically. So you can see here, for agent you can see only one circle, so one process is starting, but for prefetchers you can see multiple things. Okay, so remember, for n number of connections, let's say 2 connections are there, this connection is speaking with this prefetcher and this connection is speaking with another prefetchers. Okay, so always remember that the databases are multi-user databases where n number of people can connect to the database and n number of people can run the queries. Okay, so if a lot of people are running the queries, one prefetcher might not be sufficient to serve all the connections. Okay, so there will be number of prefetchers which will be running at the back end. So there are few parameters which we'll see in the next classes. This is the first class, so I don't want to confuse you. You can specify like how many prefetchers should be started. If you want 2 prefetchers to be started, DB2 will start 2. If you say I want 10 prefetchers, DB2 will start 10 prefetchers. Okay, so there is a parameter for that which will tell you how many prefetchers should be running at the back end, basically. Okay, so just make a quick note of these things. Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes. Make a note of these things, basically. Any questions you can ask me, unmute yourself and ask me. Will there be 2 to 3 prefetchers for? See, the agents are different and prefetchers are different. Okay, so when the client connections comes, the agent will assign the task to any free prefetcher, basically. So there won't be something like the relationship between the agent and prefetcher, basically. Okay, so for your question, basically, if the query is say a complex query, if you look at this diagram below, coordinating agent.
Raj?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, if the agent is taking the data through prefetchers, right?
Yep.
So one task, will it be split to different prefetchers? The one task of single agent.
That's what I'm saying. So if the query is complex query, if the query is a very complicated query kind of thing, what the agent will do, it will try to split your query into multiple parts, and it will assign each of the part to each sub-agents. So you can see here sub-agents, right, basically. Okay, so let's say, I'll give you an example. So just, let's say you're running this is just a vague example, but I'm not writing the complete queries. So let's say this is the query which you are trying to run, which is trying to fetch from 4 different tables, which is employee, project, staff, and org, and you are putting some conditions on these tables, basically. Okay, so if the client is running this query, the agent will start. The agent has to speak with the prefetcher, but the question is, employee data is stored in some disk, project is stored in some disk, org is stored in some disk, basically. Okay, so this data has to be fetched to the memory, this data has to be fetched here, this data has to be fetched here. Okay, but the question is, can the data be fetched parallelly or should we do it in a sequential way, basically? Okay, so when I'm trying to fetch the employee data from this diagram, so can I fetch the other data? Yes. Can I fetch the staff data? Yes. Can I fetch the org data? Yes. So what really DB2 does at the backend is, the agent will invoke multiple sub-agents. So it will try to split your query into multiple parts. It will tell the sub-agents to fetch the data of employee. It will tell the sub-agents to fetch the data of project. It will tell the sub-agents to fetch the data of staff. So it is trying to split your query into multiple parts, and each sub-agents will be speaking with the individual different prefetchers. So this sub-agent will speak with the first prefetcher. It will tell them to pull the employee data. So the employee data will be pulling from here to here. The last sub-agents might be speaking with a different thing, and it is trying to pull the data for a different table, which is staff or org or something basically. Okay. So can things be done in parallel? Yes. For your question, can a single agent invoke multiple prefetcher? It cannot do directly. It invokes multiple sub-agents, and each sub-agents will be invoking the prefetchers individually basically. Okay. Got it?
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is something like which DB2 will decide. So the question is how your agent will invoke sub-agents. So the DB2 will automatically decide if it feels that the parallelism can be achieved. The DB2 coordinating agent will automatically split your query into multiple tasks, and it will assign each of the tasks to the sub-agents, and the sub-agents individually they try to contact to the prefetchers and they try to work with the prefetchers basically. Okay. So just make a quick note of it. Okay. So I think I know if I keep on teaching, you'll be bored. I'll run something command so that it makes you interesting. Okay. Just a second. So just make a quick note of these things. So you won't understand the architecture in a single day for any technology. So just try to understand these keywords. I keep on repeating these three keywords throughout the course. Now you should know what is coordinating agent, what is prefetch. That is what you should know. What is buffer pool? In the next classes, you will see a lot number of times about the, I keep on speaking agents. So you should know what is agent, what is prefetcher kind of things basically. Okay. So don't try to understand everything in a single day. Just try to get as much as you can basically. Okay. So let's do some practical about the same things basically. Okay. So I have my DB2 ready. Okay. What I'll do, I think some question is there or something. Okay. I think the same question, right? Okay. Let me open some multiple sessions. Sorry. See, simple thing. I want to find out like how many databases are there. I told you the command. The command is list DB directory. In my thing, I have 4 databases. Okay. I'll be working with sample databases because this is the database which has data and other things. Okay. So there is a command called list applications. Just try to make a note of this command. This command will tell me like how many connections are there to my database. Okay. If I do list applications, you can see now no data was written by the database monitor, which means that no connections are there basically. Okay. So if you want a simple thing, I'll show you here. Let's say this is your DB2 server. So I'm writing with mouse, so don't expect it to be very good writing. Okay. So let's say this is your DB2 server, which you are trying, and the client is trying to connect here. So at this moment, no connections are there. So if I want to find out how many connections are there, as I told you, the command is list applications. This will tell me how many connections are there. Let's say a client is trying to connect to my server. So at this moment, can I find out how many connections are there? Yes. So what is the command? List applications, which will tell you how many connections are there. At this point, it will show you one connection. Let's say a different connections client is trying to connect to your server. At this point, if you want to check, 2 connections are there and different connections, C3. So there can be a number of clients who can connect to your server at any moment of time in the real time also. So C5. Okay, so you can see that there are 5 connections to my DB2 server. So at any time, if you want to find out how many connections are there, as I told you, the command is list applications basically. Okay, so let's do this something practically. So this is clear, right? A server can be connected from different places, and anyone who is trying to connect to your server is a client. And if I want to find out, because this is very important, because in my company, basically I'm working on a DB2 server, I want to find out how many people are connected to my server. Okay, so do we have a command? Yes, DB2 list applications is the command. Okay, so I'll just run this practically to show you. Okay, now at this moment I don't have any connections basically. Okay, what I'll do, from a different session, I'm open a different session and I'm trying to connect to sample database. So this is one connection to the database. So if you do list applications, okay, so I think it is not coming in line. So you can see there is one connection to the database because I connected from a different session. Okay, let me open another session and connect to the database. this is the second connection, but if you want to find out how many connections are there to my database, let's see run the same command. Now we should see 2 connections. Okay, open another session. So here people cannot connect remotely. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to open multiple sessions and connect and show it to you. Okay. So let me say connect to sample. So this is the third connection, but if you want to find out how many connections are there, 3 connections basically. Okay. So you're getting it right. What I'm trying to say, for any server, if you want to find out how many connections are there, the command is list application. So what I did, I opened 3 different sessions parallelly. For each session, I'm trying to connect to sample. So I just trying to check like how many connections are already there. In this case, I have 3 connections basically because 3 different people connected. Okay, and these 3 different people are here only basically. Okay, let's assume that one connection, his work is done, so he's removing the connection. How can he remove the connection? The command is connect reset. So one connection is closed by the end client basically. Okay, if you see now, instead of 3, it should show only 2 basically. Okay, so in companies, the connections will be coming. Once their work is done, their connections will be going off. Okay, so at this moment there are 2 connections. So how many agents will be running at the backend? There will be 2 coordinating agents will be running at the backend. Okay. So in this output, there are few important things which we should be knowing basically. Okay, look at each and every column. The first column is called auth ID. Second column is called application name. Third is application handle. This is something called ID. This is the database name to which you have connected and the number of agents. So as someone was asking how many agents are allocated for each and every connection, so you can see that only 1 agent was allocated here basically. Okay. So remember auth ID, I'll give you some of these things are important. So just try to understand these things, or I'll try to give you right notes here. So this is a command to find a thing. Okay, there are few things. The first is auth ID. In this example, you can see auth ID is received. Auth ID is nothing but the user ID from which you are trying to connect to database. So auth ID will tell you what is the user from which you are trying to connect to my database. In this example, you can see my DB2 SAPT because I'm trying to connect with the DB2 SAPT. Okay. So in companies, let's say my server has 20 connections and I'm connecting from Raju and someone else is connecting from Ravi, Ramesh or something. Okay. So if you want to find out how many connections are there from user ID Raju, you can do simply list applications, look at the auth ID, look for the name Raju. So that is the connection which came from Raju basically. Okay, it's very easy to find it out from the auth ID. Auth ID is nothing but the user ID from which you're trying to connect to the server basically. Okay. Clear? The second is application name, which will tell you connection is coming from which tool. So there are a lot of tools which are present in the market. Okay, so let's say if you're trying to connect from Toad application, there are a lot of clients like Toad, SAS, Cognos. So in real time, these people will understand these things. Okay, let's say one client is connecting the same example. Okay, let's say this client is trying to connect from a application which is called Toad. Toad is the client from where you can connect to the server. So if you do list application, his application name will be Toad. Okay, let's say he's trying to connect from the, okay, so for different people, if they're connecting from different tools or from different applications, if you do list applications command, the second column will tell you from which tool he's trying to connect. Okay, here I'm not trying to connect from any tool, I'm simply trying to connect using the terminals only. That's why it is showing as a DB2 BP.exe, which is nothing but the terminal process. Okay. The third column is important. You can look here. You can see there is something called application handle. This is very important. So try to understand what is application handle. So remember, for each and every connection, DB2 will generate a unique number, which is called application handle basically. Okay. You can see for the first connection, DB2 has generated 30. And the second connection, DB2 has generated 22. Okay. I'll open the third section. So let's try to connect to this database again. Now you can see 3 connections will be there, and for the new connection, I think it came in between. The handle number is 42. Okay, so handle is nothing but it's a unique number which DB2 will generate, and you need the handle numbers, because if I want to kill some specific connection, I should know the handle basically. So this column is very much important. That's why I'm trying to show you. Handle will tell you. Handle is nothing but a unique integer which is generated by DB2, and it is going to tell you what is the number for this connection basically. Okay, in this case 42. So if I want to kill, again the same example. So can I kill these two connections? Yes. If I want to kill this connection and this connection, the only thing which should be knowing is the handle for this connection, handle for this connection. If you don't know what are the handles, just do list applications and try to get the handle for those two connections. If you know the handles, you can kill the connections, or you can force out those connections basically. So this is one activity which you do. People say kill all the connections which are coming from user ID Raju. Let's say this is the connection which is coming from Raju. So what is the handle 22? So there's a command through which you can kill the connections basically. Okay. Clear to this point? Any question? What is auth ID? Auth ID is nothing but user ID, application from which it is trying to connect, the number which was generated. Okay, I'll show you a few examples. Okay, I'll show you a few things so that you can understand it. Let's say for this number 25 is generated by DB2, which is handle. For this 29, just as an example I'm giving, this is 42, this is 45, and this is 57. So DB2 is generating a unique number which is called as application handle for each and every connection. Let's say I want to kill connections C3 and C5. So what is the handle for C3? The number is 42. What is the handle for C5? 57. Okay. So remember, you can connect to the database, and if you have permissions, you can also kill the connections to the databases. Let's say I want to kill two connections which are coming from C3 client and C5 clients. So if you want to kill any connections, you should get the handle. So for this application, the handle is 42, and for this one, the handle is 57. So you should know the handles for killing the connections also basically. Okay. So clear about auth ID, clear about application name, and clear about the application handle. This is also important. So this is going to tell you from which server the connections are coming. Okay. In this case, you can see that all my connections are coming from local, because I'm just trying to open a different session and run it. But in companies in real time, you will see the IP address here basically. Okay. So IP addresses are very much important for C1 or C2 or C3. If for this connection, you'll see the IP address of the client, and for this connection, you'll see the IP address of this one. For this connection, you'll see the IP addresses. Okay, but here, unfortunately, if you look at here, you're seeing it as local, because all the connections are coming locally. I'm trying to open a different terminals and connect locally, because I don't have any remote connections from where I can connect to this server basically. Okay, but in real time, if you look at here, it will tell you the IP address of the server from which you are connecting. Let's say this is my DB2 server, and you people, how many people are there in these classes? Basically, I think there are 6 to 7 people. 9 people are there in the classes. You people are trying to connect to my server which is present here. Okay, so for this, for Bhadra's connection, I can see his IP address. For Kiran's connection, I can see his IP address, and for Naveen's, I can see his IP address basically. Okay. For each of you individual guys who are trying to connect to my server, you are clients basically. If you're trying to connect to my database, for each and every user ID which is present here, DB2 will show me the IP address of your machines. Your servers might be having a different IP addresses, and when you're trying to connect to my DB2 server, I can see your IP address from where you're trying to connect to my server basically. Okay. Or for example, I want to kill all the connections which are generated from Bhadra. If I know his IP address, which will be displayed here, I can get the handle number simply, and I can kill the connections basically. Okay. So that is the importance of having application IDs basically. Okay. Or else we will show you from the Google the examples kind of thing, how the IP addresses will be shown for each and every client's kind of thing. Unfortunately, because my server people cannot connect from external thing, so let's see if you have any. Okay, I think he has some examples here. Oh, here also everything is local for him also. Okay, that's bad. Okay. Okay, I think it does not have anything. Okay, I'll show you. I'll try to show you. I'll take a screenshot in my office and I'll show you. the IP addresses kind of thing basically. Okay, don't worry about it. But remember, these are important. These are nothing but the user ID from which it is connecting. Okay, I can see these examples. Let me check here. Okay, here also everything is connecting from DB to NSG1 only. Okay, and these are different agents, and these are, you can see the handle numbers here. They are different getting generated basically. Okay. Okay, let me clear this first. Okay. Let's say again the same example. What I'm trying to say. This is my DB2 server. Okay. And let's say I have a client. Let's say I have a server. Let's say this is a client C1. The same example which I have given you. And this is a client which is called C2. And this is a client which is called C3. Okay. Let's say he is trying to connect from user ID Raju. And he is trying to connect from user ID Ravi. I'm giving the simple names, but in companies they have some different IDs. Okay. And he is connecting from something called Anil or something. Just temporary. Okay. For each, if he's trying to connect here in the server, if I want to see his ID, I can do list applications, and I can see Raju as the auth ID for this guy, and I can see Ravi as the auth ID for this guy, and I can see Anil as the auth ID for this guy. For each and every connections, DB2 will generate a number. Let's say 57 was generated for him, 72 was generated for him, and 86 was generated for him. So these numbers are random numbers. They won't be generated in sequence. So don't worry about the numbers. You just need to know what is the ID for each and everything. Okay. Now, let's say Anil came to me and said that okay, he's running a query which is taking 10 hours and it got hung up or something and it is not running anything. And can we kill the connection? Yes. As I told you, for killing any connection, you should know the handle number. You can see in this diagram the handle for Anil is 86. So if you want to kill his connection, you should know the handle which is 86. On the same lines, and let's say I want to kill the connection for Raju, so I should know his handle number. The handle number for Raju in this example is 57. So if I want to kill any connections, I can do it using commands. Okay. So I'll give you the commands. So the question is, can I kill all the connections? Yes, you can kill all the connections. Or can I kill the specific connections? Yes, you can also kill the specific connections. But if you want to kill any specific connections, you should know the handles. If you want to kill all the connections which are there to the database, you can also do it basically. Okay. I'll give you the commands. Just make a note of the commands. Okay, let me write it somewhere. So what is 83? What is 83, Shiva? So just make a note of these commands. Okay. See, this is the syntax. Just make a note of these syntaxes. Okay. I'll show you how it works. Okay. What is saying? Not able to hear. Can you hear me, Shiva? No? Yes, no? Can you hear me, Shiva, now?
Yes, sir. I'm able to hear.
Oh, sure. You're sure, right?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So make a note of these things to kill all the connections to the. I mean, see, I'll show you in future the practical things. Maybe the today's class or tomorrow's class, everything will be a bit new to you. So just try to understand what are the commands and what are the syntaxes. We'll do the practical exercises in the coming classes, basically. Okay. So if you want to kill all the connections to the database, command is force application all, which will remove all the connections. And if you want to kill specific connections, force application here you can write the number, put a comma, write the number, put a comma. If you have only one number, put 56, close it if you want to. Or if you want to write two numbers, the handle number 1, comma handle number 2, close it basically. It's your choice basically. Okay. See, I'll show, make a note of it quickly. I'll run it something practically and I'll show you. See, architecture we'll be discussing for the next few days also. So don't worry, it's not yet completed. There's a lot of things to discuss there also. We'll see things in with practicals so that you can have a better understanding. Okay, so let's do some practical thing and we can stop it for today. In the next class also I will teach you the architecture only. Okay, so you can see at this moment I want to check how many connections are there. You can see there are 3 connections and which came up from these 3 things. Okay, okay. What I'll do, I'll open the what is no. Wait, can the rest of the people hear me? Hello? Can other people hear me? Yes, right? Okay.
I'm getting you, sir.
What? What's what?
Yeah, I'm getting, sorry, I'm getting you properly.
Okay, you're getting it properly, right? Okay. Okay, so you can see here there are 3 connections and the 3 connections came from these 3 connections only. Okay, so this is the last thing where I have generated it. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll run some query. So you can look at the query. The query is very simple query. So I'm just trying to select from employee table. So the query is running. Basically, the query is running, which means that when this connection has came, an agent has started, the agent has speaking. So what is the flow which is happening at the back end is, I'll show you the flow. Yeah. So the client, when he's running select star from employee, the agent has started at the backend. The agent is speaking with the prefetcher. It is trying to read the data from employee and is showing the result to the coordinating agent and is giving back the result set. So these are the things which are happening at the backend when the client is running a connection. So if you run this query, you can see that agent started. It has spoken with prefetcher. It has fetched the data of employee and kept in the buffer pool, which is nothing but a RAM, and it has showing the result set to the and client user things. Okay, I can open one more session. You can see I can open one more session here. Let's say I'm trying to do select on a different table. So what this will do, this query will also run. So what happens, let's say he's trying to run select star from department. So this agent will speak with the free prefetcher. It will try to search where department table is there. It will copy the data to the RAM. From the RAM, it will return the result set to the agent, and from the result set to the agent, it will return to the end client. So these are the operations which will happen at the backend for every query which you run, basically. Okay. So let me run it and show you. So I'm running the query, it is giving me the output, but I'm interested in what are the things which happened at the backend. So as I explained you, so these are the things which happened at the backend, like the agent speaking with all the stuffs which are happening here. So these are some of the things which happened at the backend. This got speaking with agent, prefetcher, and fetch the data and return the result set and return the result set to the client. Okay. So these are the stuff which happened at the backend. So you can see that I'm still happily able to run the commands, basically. I can run the commands. Okay. But the question is, I am just checking the connection. I want to kill this connection. What is the connection? This connection. So this connection came from the third terminal because that is the thing which joined last. So can I kill this individual connection? Yes. As I told you, if you want to kill some specific connection, you should know the handle. I know the handle for this one. So how to kill the connections? The command is force applications or applications. You can specify the handle. My case is 42. So this I have told you how to kill the specific connections. You have specified the handle. So in my case, I was able to kill only one connection, which is 42. Okay. So here you can see that before killing, I have not run the command. My query is running perfectly, which is from 42. Another session, the query is running perfectly. So the query, I can see it is running basically. Okay. What I'll do, I'll kill some specific connections. So I'll try to kill this connection where I'm running select star from employee. So if you kill this connection, your select star from employee query will not run in future. But the other query, which is select star from department, will run basically. So you can see I ran the command. You can look at the output. The output says the force application command completed successfully, which means that the query has been killed. So if you see list applications, instead of 3 connections which are there before, now we can see only 2 connections because one connection has been terminated by DB2. Okay. Which connection? This connection was terminated. So if I run the query again, it will fail. You can read the message. The message might be new to you, but it says the connection. Just read the message. You'll understand it very clearly. So it says that someone has killed your connection. Okay. So this is a way in which I can kill some of the connections, basically. Okay. Clear? Any questions till this point? What is connection, how the connection came, and how to kill the connection, how to kill specific connections. We'll also see like how to kill all the connections also, basically. Okay. So, but remember, I still have 2 connections, and there is one connection from where I can still run the query. Okay. But the question is, can I kill all the connections? Yes. What's the command to kill all the connections? I told you to kill all the connections which are present in the database, force application all. I can run the command. So you can see I killed all the connections. If you want to check how many connections are there, no connections are there, which means that I have killed all the connections which are there to the database. Okay. So try to understand what are the commands are and what exactly the commands are doing. Okay. This is important because you'll be running these commands in the real time a lot number of times. Clear till this point? Any questions? Okay. So till this point, we have not covered the complete architecture. We have seen like what is client part, what are the protocols which you use, what is the agents, okay, and what are prefetches, what is the hard disk, where the data is stored, and what is buffer pool, very high level basically. Okay. And okay, there is one more thing, and we have also seen like what are the connections to the databases and how to kill the connections to the databases. We have seen till this point basically. Okay. And one more important thing, as I told you, when you're trying to start the DB2, there are a lot of process which runs at the backend. Okay, you can see agent is running, you can see prefetcher is running, page scanners we'll see in the next classes, loggers, date logs, blah blah blah. So the question is, let's say this process got killed. Someone has forced these connections, or someone has this process has some issues in starting up. Okay. So the question is, can DB2 software still run if prefetches are not working or any of the process? Let's say my coordinating agent is not starting properly. Will DB2 process still work? No. Remember, if DB2 has to run, it has to make sure that all the processes are up and running. If due to some reason, if some of the process is not starting properly or not working properly, DB2 won't start and DB2 will throw you errors basically. Okay. So the DB2 software or most of the company software, they're designed in such a fashion that if things are running, everything should run. If one process or one thing is having issues, they will make sure that the software is not running at all basically. Okay. So if DB2 has to run, it has to make sure that all the processes which are defined in this architectural diagram has to start and they have to work perfectly. If due to memory issues or due to any issues, if any of the process, if any one of the process, if it is not able to start due to any reason, then DB2 won't run at all basically. Okay. So there is a log file where DB2 will write such a amount of information which we'll see in the next classes. But remember, all the process start, then only DB2 will run. If something goes bad, then the complete DB2 will come down basically. Okay. So any questions? We'll stop it for today. Okay. So I'll cover the architecture in detail in the next class, and we'll see some practical stuff also basically. So any questions till this point before we wind it off for today also? For people who missed yesterday, I will send you the recording sessions. Okay. Don't worry about the recording session. This one also I can forward you. Clear about architecture and thing. If you want to read the documentation site, as I told you, you can read the documentation site from this information manager. Or if you want to look at list applications also, you can see these outputs. Basically, I'll send you this. Maybe you can go through it just for understanding purpose. So read this material also. I mean, it has a lot of other things which I'll tell you. Okay. Any questions before we stop it for today? We'll increase the time, so don't worry about the time. So I know it's 1 hour 15 minutes or something. We'll slowly increase it to 1 hour 30 minutes in the next class, basically. Okay. Any questions before we stop it for today? Hello? Yes, no, right? Okay. So we'll close it for today. Okay. We'll meet again tomorrow with architecture, and tomorrow also I'll also start how to install DB2 on Linux basically, or we'll start with Windows or Linux. Okay, I'll cover some basics of Linux before start teaching you. Okay, so that is also important. You should know how to install DB2 on Linux. So then we'll see in the next classes like how to create databases, how to create instances, and other stuff basically. Okay, so we'll stop it for today. Okay, and have a nice day basically. Bye. So I'm closing the sessions. Hold on, let's close it.